So, here we are with the front gear tower. Here's the crack that I was telling you about. We're going to replace that one. And this SD45 was built... I have an older SD45 with a different gear tower assembly, and that one was a headache and a half. But this has the older assembly where you don't have the little nuts in between the gear and the axle, and each wheel of the axle. But they're still pretty good. They're still pretty good. So, to get into this gear tower, you have this clip over here, which you remove first, and then you go remove the clips over here. So, we're going to carefully put our finger over this clip, remove it so it doesn't fly off into oblivion, put it into our tray, and then as far as removing the bottom clip, this clip over here, you go in from the top. Don't go in from here, because that's the mistake I made. You go in from the top. There are snaps in particular places, but you go in from the top, and I know that was going to happen because it's cracked. And you go in from the top over here. That comes off. We're going to summarily dispose that. Now, I'm a big chicken. The reason why I'm a big chicken is, even though I've done so many Athearn locomotives so far, I still like to do one gear tower at a time. Don't be a hero. You want to go at it carefully if you're still not 100% positive about taking care of your locomotives. And what's also important when it comes to servicing locomotives is that you have to make sure what the gear orientation is inside. What we have here are a 45 tooth gear right underneath the gear worm, and you have two 23-inch teeth right behind them. This is the orientation that you want. And orientation is also important because there are little dots over here. For the 45 tooth gear, you have a dot at 12, 3, 6, and 9. And you have a little raised edge right over here for this rear gear. So, you want to remember where everything goes. If you're not sure, take pictures as you go along. Take pictures as you go along. That way, if you think you may have missed a step, you have your photographs to fall back on. Otherwise, you may curse or swear. But if you curse or swear, make sure you're near no houses of worship or within any listening distance of any members of the clergy. So, this gear tower this half of the gear tower is halfway decent, although we're going to clean it. But it's over here that is very concerning. Look at all that oxidation. I'm hoping it's oxidation and not rust. I'm going to take my fiberglass pencil and see if I can get any of that off. And it is coming off. Thank goodness. If you want to wear gloves, that's perfectly fine with you. It's whatever floats your boat. You could use a Bright Boy if you want to. It'll do just about the same job. Yeah, that's grease from lubrication. I'm gonna clean that. And you want to get into this crevice right over here. I'm just going to wipe this down with some simple green. So, with the front gear tower nice and clean, I'm going to go ahead and reassemble, put the gears back in. And when I put the gears back in, I like to use red lithium. And You can always use the label grease to lubricate the gears, or you can use Super Lube, which you can find at Harbor Freight. I can't be absolutely sure if you can find it at Walmart. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. You can always look at a local hardware store for this stuff. This stuff I used before the red lithium, and what's special about it is that it is safe for plastics. It anything that you use to lubricate other than label grease or Woodland Scenics lubricant products, you have to make sure it has this word, or rather this abbreviation, PTFE. I'm going to try and bring it a little bit closer up, and I'm going to, yeah, you have to make sure it's PTFE. If it's not PTFE, then you may run into problems. But I transitioned over to red lithium, which is red brake grease. You could find this at any auto parts store. You could find it at Harbor Freight. Not this particular brand, of course. This I picked up at an auto parts store, but you could pick this up at an auto parts store. You could pick it up at Walmart, Harbor Freight, or the equivalent. It's very good, very helpful, and I bought this container a few years ago, and I've barely scraped the surface with this stuff, because you don't need to go to town. You just only need so much, and application requires only, a small hobby screwdriver, a slotted screwdriver. And we're going to take this gear tower, going to put a little bit into the center. If you take too much, just scrape it on the top, and you just use whatever you scraped on the top for your reserves. For other applications. So, we have to remember the orientation of the gears. 45, 23, and then the other 23 right over here. If your Athearn locomotive didn't come with the specifications, and foolish me, I threw away those schematics. You can always find it on HOSeeker.net. You can print it down, print it out. That's your reference. If you don't want to go to HOSeeker, then you could always just photograph as you go along. So now I've got the gears in their spot. I'm just going to put a little red lithium in between each gear. Like so. And then we spin it around so we could share all that love. This one didn't get enough love. This is what you want. This is what you're looking for. You want to make sure everyone's meshing nicely. Everyone get along. The gears in between each axle I cleaned off camera using just a simple green and a toothbrush, so it's nice and clean. And as we put each gear back in, we're going to give a little dab of the red lithium, and I insert the axle facing up, with the red lithium up, so that it can mesh with the gears. So it's just, everyone gets all that love. When everything is fully assembled, I'm going to clean the axles. Rather than go one axle at a time, we could do this all in one fell swoop. Right, so everyone's in. It's gonna be a little awkward, but you can kind of see that everyone is getting along very happily. And when you put these specific types of Athearn axles back in, orientation does not matter, because these wheels are not insulated. If you're servicing a locomotive that has insulated wheels on one side of the axle, orientation matters. If you're new at servicing locomotives, take pictures. I cannot stress that any more. So these axles have pointy ends, as opposed to the Athearn locomotives that have the nut behind each wheel. And when you're putting these things in, you want to make sure that you have these little brass collars, because that's where the pointy end of these axles go into, and fit it over just like so. You want to put the curved end right over the axle just before the wheel, and so is it right? So now everything's sitting in its place, and before we put the axle cover back on, we're going to spin these wheels, and you can see that everyone's getting along very nicely. I'm going to take a brand new truck cover and snap this on. Now, what's important, I love that snap sound. When it snaps in place, it means we got us a very nice fit. What's important about the truck covers for 6-axle locomotives, these specific axle covers, truck covers, axle covers, whatever you want to call them, they're what prevent the axles from falling out. Let's put it that way. What's important is not all truck covers are made the same. They're not made for all locomotives. This truck cover was specific to this 6-axle locomotive. An Alco PA1 by Athearn will have a different truck cover, and Athearn 2466 Trainmasters have a very, very different truck cover. Even though it's a 6-axle locomotive, 2 axles are closer together and they are further, and the 3rd axle is somewhat further apart, like the redheaded stepchild. So we're going to see if our work paid off. Give me 1 second. Right, so we're going to put the front gear tower onto the track. Proper orientation, of course. And it's really nice, footloose, and fancy-free. And before I forget, I am going to check to see if the wheels are engaged. This is a very helpful tool. If you don't have one, get one. This is an NMRA standards gauge. You can find them on Amazon, eBay, your local hobby store if they carry it. They make it for all scales. So I'm going to make sure that the wheels are engaged. And they are. Wonderful. So I'm just going to work on the rear gear tower, and then I'll be right back.